Hello, I'm Pastor David Beaver, and welcome to this encouragement video entitled Hope in These COVID Days, 2021. It is January 11th, and we are still doing COVID restrictions. They have been lifted quite a bit here in Los Angeles County, but we're still doing COVID restrictions, so I'm still doing these videos, and I enjoy them very much. In our college ministry, we started going through, at the beginning of the year, John, the book of John. And it's 21 chapters, and so it's going to take us 20 weeks. We're going one chapter at a time through the book of John. And this week we're in John chapter 6. And I have to say, I really enjoy this study of John. It is so deep, it is so profound, and it's so amazing. I can read something and get something out of it, and then read a study notes and say, I didn't even get that at all. There's so much depth to the book of John. It's quite amazing to me, and it has always amazed me that way, reading the book of John and hearing other people teach on chapters and parts of John. But I want to share with you John chapter 6 today, verses 1 through 13, actually 1 through 14. This really starts with Jesus getting away, going across to the Sea of Galilee, and trying to get away because John the Baptist has basically just been beheaded. If we looked at all the other synoptics, the other Gospels, John the Baptist has just basically been beheaded in a very horrific and gory way. And many of the disciples were disciples of John the Baptist before they became disciples and followers of Jesus. And Jesus, of course, is a cousin of John the Baptist. And they've just learned this, and I'm sure it's a depressing time, and so they're getting away and going to the other side. And as they're there, the crowds start to follow. So let me pick it up right here. But before I do that, I also want to say that in reading John in our young adult group, I saw this lesson, and I want to share it with you because in light of our vision and our focus for 2021 here at Bouquet Canyon Church, there is a lot to glean from this as we look forward in 2021 to a real focus on evangelism and a real focus on apologetics. So I just want to point that out as we read here John chapter 6, 1 through 13, which is the feeding of the 5,000. After this, Jesus crossed over to the far side of the Sea of Galilee, also known as the Sea of Tiberias. A huge crowd kept following him wherever he went because they saw his miraculous signs as he healed the sick. Then Jesus climbed the hill and sat down with his disciples around him. It was nearly time for the Jewish Passover celebration. Jesus soon saw a huge crowd of people coming to look for him. Turning to Philip, he asked, "Where can we buy bread to feed all of these people?" He was testing Philip, for he already knew what he was going to do. Philip replied, "Even if we worked for months, we wouldn't have enough money to feed them." Actually, in the ESV, it says if we had 200 denarii, with 1 denarii was a day's labor pay. It was a laborer's pay, 1 denarii. So if they'd worked for 200 days, they wouldn't have enough food to even give everybody a little bit of food, and which would actually be about 8 months worth of food. So just want to say that. Then Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. "There's a young boy here with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what good is that with this huge crowd?" "Tell everyone to sit down," Jesus said. So they all sat down on the grassy slopes. The men alone numbered about 5,000. That means there were women and children also. So 5,000 men, however many women and children, a lot of people. Then Jesus took the loaves, and he gave thanks to God and distributed them to the people. Afterwards, he did the same with the fish, and they all ate as much as they wanted. After everyone was full, Jesus told his disciples, "Now gather the leftovers so that nothing is wasted." So they picked up the pieces and filled 12 baskets with scraps left by the people who had eaten from the 5 barley loaves. When the people saw him do this miraculous sign, they exclaimed, "Surely he is the prophet we have been expecting." If I had the opportunity to witness one of Jesus' miracles, this is the one I would want to witness. The ability to see people's faces as they have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And as they're going around, they split it up and they put it in other baskets and going around and just keep reaching in, and the baskets continue to be full. Not just full, they didn't have to ration. They didn't have to portion. They ate until they were full, the text says. They ate until they could eat no more, and then picked up 12 baskets of leftovers. I would have loved to see that take place. Of most of the miracles or things in the Bible, that would have been a beautiful one to see, to witness. So there's a couple points I want to pick out here today. Jesus sees the need for food and asks Philip as a test for a human solution to a problem, and Jesus knew there was no human solution to this problem. He asked him as a test. And so Philip comes up with money. Even if we had enough money, even if we had a half a year's wages, more than half a year's wages, we still couldn't solve this. Jesus knows this. He asked this question in order to highlight what he's about to do. I also want to point out that Jesus looks out over the crowd and he shows compassion. Philip and the disciples, they look over the crowd and they make excuses. They like, how are we going to do this? This is over, and above what we can actually handle. I think that is very interesting to see. Jesus knew that finances or skill sets were not going to fix this situation. We can limit what God does in and through us by assuming what is and what is not possible. Let me say that again. We can limit what God is about to do by just assuming what is and what is not possible. And that's what Philip did. It's impossible to feed all of these people. We don't have the money. We don't have the food. We don't have the time. We don't have the resources. We can't do it. People can worry about what they don't have when serving God, but we are to serve with what we do have. I think that is a very important lesson. Don't worry about what you don't have. If God is asking you to do something, then we need to just do it. Not worry about what we don't have. God will provide that. We can't let our estimate of what can't be done keep us from taking on the task that God has told us to do. J.D. Greer said in his study on Judges through Right Now Media, he said one of the most profound lines, and it's stuck with me forever, and it said, God does not call the equipped. He equips the called. Meaning he's not looking for the people that already have the food to feed the 5,000. He's not looking for people that have the money to go buy the food to feed the 5,000. He's looking for people that are willing to do something that he's asking them to do, which is feed the 5,000. God will take care of it. And it's important, I think, also to note that we've all been called. We've all been called to meet the needs of the people around us, our oikos, our sphere of influence. We've all been put into those spheres of influence in order to meet the needs of people. And oftentimes we will say, look, I can't share my faith because I don't know the answer to the questions they might ask. I can't share my faith because I don't want to lose my job. We'll make many excuses of why we can't do what we're supposed to do, or I can't work with the homeless, or I can't feed the homeless, or fix this problem, so I'm not willing to do anything. And God is saying, go. God is saying, do. God is saying, take care of what needs to be taken care of because I'm calling you. And I will worry, and then he will take care of the rest of it, and he will be glorified. The next point I want to make is comes from my actual Bible study, the study Bible that I use. And so I'm just basically plagiarizing this Living Bible study Bible. There is a lesson in the leftovers. In the leftovers, there's a lesson right there. At the end, when everyone was full, there are 12 baskets left over. And I don't believe that number 12 is insignificant. There are 12 disciples. And God is showing them, look, we're not just going to provide for them. I'm also going to give you a sack lunch for tomorrow. I'm going to go above and beyond what I've done in the past. And you're going to see greater things than this. He set that before to them. And I'm going to show you that not only am I going to meet their needs, but there's going to be abundance and there's going to be leftovers. God did not just provide for that day's food, but lunch boxes for 12 disciples that gave nothing. Important to realize, the disciples, they gave nothing. They didn't say, well, look, I've got a sandwich and I've got, a Snickers bar or something like that. They didn't give anything. They said, there's nothing we can do. We don't have anything. But this young boy has 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And he gives that to Jesus and says, basically, do what you want. They take this food, and Jesus gives thanks. First of all, give thanks for what you do have. Don't make excuses for what you don't have. Give thanks for what you do have. Jesus gave thanks to God. He takes the bread and he breaks it apart and he distributes that bread. That young man gave everything, which was not enough to feed 5,000 people. But God took what he did have and he blessed and multiplied that to feed 5,000 plus people. God gives in abundance. He takes whatever we offer him in time, in ability, and resources and multiplies its effectiveness beyond our wildest expectations. And that, I think, is just, it can't be drilled home enough. God will use whatever you offer to him in obedience and multiply it beyond our wildest expectations. If we take the first step in making ourselves available to him, he will show us, he will show you how greatly you can be used to advance the work of his kingdom. Here at Bouquet Canyon Church, it is our purpose to awaken people to the love of God, to help people awaken to the love of God, to help people grow in the love of God, and to help people live out the love of God by awakening other people to the love of God. It's just a cycle, it's a circle, and I love that, our purpose statement. We, as a body of Bouquet Canyon Church, have everything we need to reach this community, Santa Clarita. We have everything that we need to do what God has called us to do, and that is to help people awaken to the love of God. And I believe that you have everything that you need already in you to do what God is asking you to do in your sphere of influence, in your oikos, to reach the lost, to share your faith, to give of your time, your talents, and your resources. Even they might seem small. I don't have time to do that. I don't have enough money to give to the home. If God is calling you to a certain task, he will equip you to do that. God does not call the equipped, he equips the called. It reminds me of a time in our youth ministry. Don and I were working with the youth ministry, and there was this young man. I love this guy. He was really, really smart, and he was a great athlete, very competitive. So we had a lot of fun, dodgeball, paintball, all those things that you do in youth group. And he was very inquisitive. He wanted to know about Jesus, but he had a lot of doubt, and it was because he's a very smart young man, and he was all about science. And it never lined up for him, God and science, black holes, time, all these things that were big, big questions. And believe me, way out of my pay grade. I'm not a math and science guy at all. And so he would ask me these questions, and I would just say, I'm not going to use his name to say, dude, I don't know. All I know is this is what God has done in my life, and this is what God continues to do in my life, and I believe that he will answer your questions. And I think this young man kept coming because Don and I poured love into this young man, and he was going through a broken family time, and it was a very difficult time in his life, but we showed love and compassion and care, and he got to play sports and had fun with his friends. So he kept coming, and he kept asking questions. One time at camp, Thousand Pines, we go up there for a week of camp, and he's probably 9th or 10th grade, and he's asking me these questions. And I don't know how this relates. I'm not smart enough to figure this out. I don't even understand his questions, let alone how to answer his questions. But Pastor Billy was up there, and Pastor Billy is a math and science and physics guy. He loves this. The study of black holes and time, and how scientists are being stumped by light and how light works. And oh my gosh, he blows my brain apart. But all I had to do was introduce this young man to Pastor Billy, who also loves sports and who also loves math and science. So we went out for a day of frisbee golf out in the woods of Thousand Pines up in Crestline, and I walked behind them and listened to them talk about the most nerdy, brain-numbing information, but this man was thriving. Pastor Billy and this kid were thriving on this conversation, and I was so lost. I was as lost as my frisbee half the time out in the woods. I could not understand what they were talking about, but it didn't matter, because God did not ask me to give answers to these. He asked me to introduce them to Pastor Billy, and Pastor Billy was able to show him that God created all the things that he was questioning. God was bigger than all of the things that he could even come up with. God was there and God created it all. And it helped this young man believe that there is a God that loves him and is concerned for him and concerned for the questions that he has about the universe and the making of the universe. And it was amazing to see God use Pastor Billy in this young man's life, because that's what he was called to do. He didn't shy away from it and say, no, I got to work on my sermon, or no, I don't want to do that. He spent time with this young man, used his gifts, talents, and abilities for this young man. I couldn't answer these questions, so I didn't. I didn't lie to him. I didn't make things up. I introduced him to somebody who could. And I love that story. And I believe that's where we are. And I believe that's what happened here. The disciples didn't have what they needed, but this young man did. And this young man gave everything he had at this time to God, who then did the miracle. The disciples didn't do the miracle. They were confused by the whole thing. So I just want to point out that if God is calling you, and I believe that he is, to something great in your sphere of influence, then reach out. If you don't know if you know how to answer those questions, then figure out how to answer those questions. Because somebody might ask you someday a question that you don't know. But be honest with them and say, I don't know. Let me introduce you to somebody who does. Or let me find out the answer for you. That's what it takes. Just being loving, compassionate, and caring, and showing up, as John Ogg says, showing up for the appointment. Showing up for the appointment. Being there when God calls you. Using your gifts, talents, abilities, no matter how big or how small they are, to allow God to work through you. To allow God to work through you and accomplish what he needs to expand his kingdom through you. That's all I have for today. I love you. I thank you. I cannot wait for us to meet together. We're going to be meeting out here in the tent here very soon on Sunday mornings, gathering together, and I'm very excited about that. Have a wonderful day. Look forward to talking with you soon and seeing you soon. God bless. Bye-bye.